prepaid collect call from
Scott Eizember,
an incarcerated individual at Oklahoma State Penitentiary.
Scott Eizember is on death row for killing an elderly couple who lived across the street from an ex-girlfriend he was stalking.
It's for Scott.
this execution protocol we have here, I'm going to get much more deep. You're strapped down to a table. Wrist straps, ankle straps, straps across your chest, your belly. You have to wear a diaper. And then you're going to jam needles until they find a vein. This is supposed to be an execution, not a vindication.
I think that there are some people who have been victims of violent crime, victims' families, who maybe think, I don't care if this guy feels pain in his execution.
I would ask them where their empathy is. They want me to be remorseful, which I am, but they want my head.
In just a few minutes, Scott Eizember is going to be executed in the death chamber in that prison right there. And I've been talking to him the last month, and he feels strongly that the way the state is going to kill him is cruel and unusual punishment. And part of the reason is that the drugs that they're using to kill him are the exact same drugs that they've used to kill people in the last several botched executions here.
An execution by lethal injection deviated horribly from the script.
He was grimacing, clenching his jaw. His body was shaking.
Witnesses say he started convulsing and vomiting.
The man called out, "It feels like acid, and my body is on fire."
Starting in 2014, inmates in Oklahoma, including Eizember, filed a lawsuit over the 3-drug combination used in lethal injections. They argued the protocol produces, quote, severe pain, needless suffering, and a lingering death, and cited a lack of training in the staff that administer the drugs. The inmates claim the method is a violation of the 8th Amendment, which prohibits cruel or unusual punishment. They lost when a judge ruled the protocol was constitutional. Almost immediately, the state scheduled 25 executions, more than half of Oklahoma's death row population.
Hey, Daisy. Hey, baby. She protects all of the wildlife around here. We've got a goat, and these guys right here, this is Apache. He's part of my inner peace. He's just one of many critters around here that really makes us happy.
Randy Workman was the warden of Oklahoma State Penitentiary until 2013, where he oversaw 30 executions.
Could you just give us the play-by-play of how executions are carried out?
Well, when a guy goes for execution, he is given a drug that will put him to sleep, much like surgeries. The next shot that goes in will basically paralyze the lungs. At that point, he may start to cough some. I've seen it 2 or 3 times.
What did that say to you?
That the next drug was working and that his lungs had quit working.
But did you think that he was maybe experiencing discomfort or pain?
Everyone that I've seen, the guy was completely out of it. He wasn't aware. And then the next shot that's administered is potassium chloride. Even a pin drop of it in your system could paralyze your heart. But he's given enough to probably take care of a bull elephant. And then he's dead.
What was that experience like for you?
It was very traumatic at first. But it's not your decision. It's the law of the land. Your role is to make sure that absolutely everything is carried out with dignity. The fact that you're losing your life is the punishment.
Anesthesia is both a procedurally oriented specialty, but we also have to have a really good grasp of pharmacology and physiology.
Dr. Gail Van Norman is an anesthesiologist who testified in the inmate's lawsuit that midazolam, the drug that Oklahoma uses to put prisoners to sleep during an execution, cannot reliably keep them unconscious.
What we want to demonstrate here today is what a general anesthetic would look like. I'm going to be administering 5 drugs. In this case, I'm going to give 1 milligram of midazolam, and I'm going to follow that with 50 micrograms of fentanyl. You can see that his eyes are beginning to droop. He's blinking a little less.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm just noticing his eyes now.
You'll see that his heart rate has fallen and his blood pressure has come down. These are all indications to me that the drugs probably made it in.
So the sedatives that, let's say, a death row inmate is getting during an execution, how is that different than what we're seeing right here?
Well, in the first place, obviously the purpose is different, but in the second place, a general anesthetic is almost never accomplished with just one drug. An anesthetic is literally a symphony of a lot of different drugs given together in a knowledgeable way with scientific evidence supporting their effects so that we can provide a patient with a relaxed and painless experience in the operating room.
You recently testified in a case in Oklahoma. What were your main arguments?
First of all, that the protocol will not actually produce an unconscious inmate. In addition, the way the drugs are given and the very drugs that are applied will cause something called pulmonary edema, which will, in effect, cause the inmate to drown. Their lungs fill with fluid during the execution, and their airway obstructs so they can't take air in even if they want to. The paralytic agent prevents them from demonstrating that they're feeling pain, even though they can feel extreme pain and extreme suffering during this. And then the potassium that's given at the end is absolutely known to be completely excruciating. It's a lot like being lit on fire. So,
in Oklahoma, are these inmates receiving enough of a sedative to prevent them from feeling pain during these executions?
The main drug that's used to sedate them is midazolam, and midazolam is not an anesthetic. It is incapable of keeping a person or an animal asleep during a very strong, painful stimulus.
These prisoners have been sentenced to death. Does it matter that they feel pain?
Certainly it matters. I mean, we're supposed to be exacting punishment or exacting what the law allows, but we aren't supposed to be torturing people.
We're at the Oklahoma State Capitol to meet Representative J.J. Humphrey. He's the chair of the House Criminal Justice and Corrections Committee, and we're here to talk to him about whether the state has an obligation to ensure that inmates are not feeling pain during their executions.
I'm a 100% supporter of the death penalty, but I'm a 100% supporter of getting it right.
Credible anesthesiologists have said that some of these death row inmates in Oklahoma have likely experienced pain during their executions. Do you think that that is a violation of the Eighth Amendment?
Whatever the court tells us to do, that's what we're going to carry out. Now, do I have a personal opinion? Absolutely. I don't think there's any way that you can execute somebody without pain.
How is that not a violation of the Eighth Amendment then?
Well, it's cruel and unusual. It's what the word is. So again, that's a pretty broad definition. Some people I know would say if you're hung, it's not cruel and unusual. You committed a murder, you deserve to die. This is the way we're going to kill you. I don't think there's any pretty way to carry out a death penalty. So people who want to see no, absolutely nothing, I don't think you'll ever get there. I think that what you try to do is to give as little as pain as you can. But again, what's pain?
Do you know that midazolam is a controversial drug in these executions?
Oh, yes. The ones that were botched, midazolam seemed to be the culprit.
I mean, when you think about that, what goes through your mind?
I don't think about it. I've been here 17, almost 18 years. I've seen a lot of guys get executed. You become numb to it.
Reverend Jeff Hood, Eizember's spiritual advisor, spoke to the crowd right after witnessing his execution.
It is a bizarre occurrence that in this country, we put someone in a room with an audience and kill them, and we call it justice.
Could you give us a sense of what you witnessed in there?
I mean, it was just beyond disturbing. When the poison started flowing, he started snorting. He started choking and kind of, I guess the best word for it is gasping for air.
How long do you think Scott was choking, gasping for air?
A couple of minutes, easily a couple minutes. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 minutes actually.
Did you feel like he was feeling pain or was suffering in some way?
I think that's the thing about these executions. I have no way of knowing that.
Give us a sense of how much reporting you've done on the death penalty over the years.
I've witnessed 4 executions in Oklahoma.
And what was it like to be in the room witnessing them?
It was a bit surreal. Watching someone actually die is very different than seeing someone who has passed away. But I felt that it was my duty as a journalist to report to people who are reading this, whether they're pro-death penalty or anti-death penalty, or they don't know exactly what happened. So each one of these cases has victims, has families, and has a pretty devastating story behind it. And that's, I think, important to remember. But that is completely separate from whether the 8th Amendment to the Constitution was violated. Question of innocence or guilt has nothing to do with whether these people are executed in a way that doesn't cause unnecessary suffering and torture.
What happened with Clayton Lockett?
It was the first execution in Oklahoma that used midazolam, which is not, as my reporting showed, an anesthetic. It is a twilight drug that is given to people who are going to have their wisdom teeth taken out, are going to have a colonoscopy. But if they were burned or they were stabbed, they probably would wake up. So this thing starts. He's covered up with a sheet, and then they ask him if he has last words, and he says no. The warden says, "Let the execution begin." And they apparently start pumping the drugs, and the doctor gets up and checks and says, no, he's not unconscious yet. And then he gets up and checks again. And then the doctor's saying, yes, he's unconscious. They begin obviously pumping the second and the third drugs, and he just starts moving. You know, his leg twitches, his arm twitches. You know, there's movement there, and I've never seen movement.
In the prior executions, you never saw anything like that?
Nothing like that. No, not at all. He was literally raising his head up, trying to get off the gurney, and turning his head from side to side and talking. And it was clear that he was not out.
Did he seem distressed?
Yeah, absolutely. He seemed to me, to a reasonable observer, this guy seemed to be in pain. It was like something out of a horror movie, honestly.
Were you able to figure out what the main reasons were that that execution was so botched?
They didn't have training in case something went wrong. They used just a local doctor who apparently couldn't insert a femoral IV because the IV was inserted improperly, and so the drugs either leaked into his tissue or they spilled out onto the floor. So he didn't get enough of the first drug to put him out. And they're also experimenting with a drug. They're sort of making it up on the fly.
Why does it matter if these guys feel pain or not?
It matters because the 8th Amendment of the Constitution says that there shouldn't be cruel and unusual punishment. And because I think it reduces us to a level of other countries that we hold ourselves above in terms of treating people humanely.
I'm Michael Learmonth, editor-in-chief of Vice News. Too often, traditional news outlets shy away from the real stories and experiences of those living through global conflicts, not Vice News. Our reporters are on the ground, fearlessly covering the human stories that shape our world. You and millions of others can continue to read, watch, and listen to Vice News for free. But we hope you'll consider making a one-time or ongoing contribution of any size at vice.com/contribute. Every contribution, no matter how big or small, helps support the journalism Vice News brings to you every day. Thank you.